They don't miss you when you're calling, when you're texting, when you're begging them to see your worth. They miss you when the silence grows louder than their distractions. They miss you when the attention they pushed away is no longer there to catch them. And here's the truth. Avoidants don't realize what they had until it's gone. Not because they didn't value you, but because they were too afraid to feel it while it was right in front of them. This is why avoidants miss you the most. After you're gone, the silence they can't escape. Avoidants live in a world of contradictions. They crave closeness, but fear it. They want love, but avoid the risk of needing it. So when you were there, present, showing up, loving them fully, they couldn't handle the intensity. To them, intimacy feels dangerous. It feels like surrendering control. It feels like giving someone else the power to hurt them. So they withdraw. They create distance. They prioritize work, friends, hobbies, anything but you. But here's the twist. That distance is not freedom. It's fear in disguise. And fear has one fatal flaw. It collapses when the thing it tries to avoid is suddenly gone. When you finally stop chasing, you break the cycle. No more texts. No more reaching out. No more begging for crumbs. And in that silence, something terrifying happens for the avoidant. They no longer have your steady presence as their backdrop. They no longer have the comfort of knowing you'll always be there, waiting, hoping, trying. The silence becomes unbearable because the truth is, while they acted distant, your love was their anchor. They relied on your persistence to keep the connection alive. When you're gone, the avoidant finally feels the weight of the emptiness they've created. Let's be clear, avoidants do not miss you the way you might miss them. When you miss someone, you long for closeness, for reunion, for shared moments. When they miss you, it often starts with absence, with routine breaking, with the loss of a buffer they didn't know they depended on. It creeps in slowly. They go about their lives. They keep busy. They distract themselves. But then, a quiet moment arrives. The phone doesn't buzz. Your name doesn't flash. The routine of you is gone. And that's when it hits them. You're not there anymore. At first, they might fight it. This is fine. I wanted space. I didn't need them anyway. But here's the thing. Human attachment is wired into us. No one escapes it, not even avoidance. So, underneath their logic, beneath the surface of their walls, their nervous system feels the rupture. The absence registers as danger. The body aches for what it once pushed away. They might not name it as missing you, but that's exactly what it is. This is why avoidants often circle back, why they reappear, just when you've finally begun to move on, because their fear of closeness never erased their need for it. And once the silence settles in, once they realize you are no longer orbiting their world, they feel the loss more acutely than they ever allowed themselves to feel your presence. Think of it like this. When you were near, you were like oxygen, always available, taken for granted. But when oxygen is cut off, when the air goes still, the body panics. It gasps. It remembers what it needs. That's the avoidant missing you, not at the height of your giving, but at the silence of your absence. And here's the paradox. They don't just miss you. They miss the version of themselves that only existed because you stayed. You were the safety net. You were the one who absorbed their walls, their distance, their coldness, and still reached for them. Without you, they're left facing themselves. And that is far scarier than facing you. Now here's the part most people never understand. The avoidant doesn't miss you despite pushing you away. They miss you because they pushed you away. The guilt, the regret, the emptiness, all of it builds. When you stop showing up to carry the relationship, So the next time you wonder, did they ever care? Do they miss me at all? Remember this. They don't miss you in the obvious ways. They miss you in the silences, in the routines broken, in the stillness of a night, when your name doesn't appear on their phone. And it's in those moments that the avoidant feels the hidden cost of their choices. That's why they miss you the most. After you're gone, the delayed ache of avoidance. At first glance, it looks like the avoidant moves on easily. They post on social media. They stay busy with work. They dive into hobbies, friends, distractions, to the outside world. They look fine, unaffected, untouched. But this is an illusion. Avoidants are not free of feeling. They are skilled at delaying it, postponing it, burying it under activity. That's why their ache is always delayed. When you left, your absence didn't slam into them all at once. It crept in like a shadow, quiet, unnoticed. At first, for days, sometimes weeks, they carry on as usual. But human memory is a tricky thing. It doesn't let go of what felt safe, even if the mind insists on burying it. So your laugh, your touch, the way you said their name, these echoes begin to return, not in moments of strength, but in moments of weakness. Late at night, after a long day, when they're alone in bed, scrolling through a phone that no longer lights up with your name. That's when the ache arrives. The avoidant thought they wanted independence. They thought freedom meant no longer being pursued, no longer being needed, no longer feeling pressured. But independence without connection is isolation, and isolation turns the walls they built for protection into a prison. What they thought was space becomes emptiness. What they thought was freedom becomes loneliness. And that's when the missing hits them hardest. Avoidants don't just miss you, they miss the role you played in softening the sharp edges of their world. You were the one who reached for them, who reminded them they were lovable, even when they acted unlovable. Without you, their defenses feel heavier. Their world feels colder. Because here's the truth. Avoidants survive on distance, but they thrive on connection. They didn't know it, but you were the proof that intimacy was possible. And when you're gone, they're left with the ache of losing not just you, but the version of life they could have had with you. Psychologists call this delayed grief, when loss doesn't register right away, but comes crashing in later, like a wave you thought had passed, only to realize it was still building offshore. That's the avoidant experience. At first, they convince themselves, I'm fine, I'm better without them. This is what I needed. But then life quiets down, and the silence reveals a truth they've been running from. They are not better without you. They are emptier. This is why so many avoidants reach out later. A text at midnight, a comment on social media, a hey, how have you been? Out of nowhere. It's not random. It's the ache speaking. They couldn't face their feelings while you were there. So those feelings show up later, after you've moved on. And to you, it feels confusing, even cruel. But to them, it feels inevitable. Because human attachment doesn't disappear just because fear says so. It waits. It lingers. It resurfaces. Here's the paradox. The more you gave, the less they felt they needed you. But the moment you're gone, your absence becomes undeniable. Think of it like water. When the glass is full, you don't think about thirst. But when the glass is empty, suddenly thirst consumes you. Avoidants miss you, not because you were gone all along, but because the fullness of you is no longer there to take for granted. And this ache isn't shallow. It runs deep, because missing you is not just about missing your presence. It's about missing the version of themselves they could only access with you. You pulled out their softer side, You challenged their fears. You showed them love wasn't always a trap. Now, without you, they feel that loss internally. It's not just your love that's gone. It's the version of themselves they can't access alone. This is why they're missing. Often comes with regret. Not just regret of losing you, but regret of losing the chance to grow through you. They miss not only what was, but what could have been. And that regret makes the ache sharper because the avoidant knows deep down that their own walls cost them something rare. So when you wonder why they suddenly come back, why they reach out when it seems too late, why they miss you most after you've gone, it's because their ache was delayed, because their fear postponed their grief, because their silence became unbearable. And in that unbearable stillness, they finally feel what they fought hardest to avoid, missing you, the void they can't escape. The avoidant builds a life on escape. Escape from pressure, escape from demands, escape from closeness. That feels too overwhelming. But what they can't escape is the void, because once you're gone, something is missing. Not just your presence, not just your love, but the balance you brought to their world of self-protection. Avoidants live in constant tension. They crave closeness, but fear it. They want intimacy, but dread being consumed by it. And you were the bridge. You held the closeness they secretly longed for, while carrying the burden of their distance. When you left, that bridge collapsed, and suddenly, they're staring into the emptiness they worked so hard to avoid. This void is not quiet. It's loud. It echoes with the things they told themselves weren't important. The good morning texts, the laughter during a simple dinner, the comfort of knowing someone cared enough to check in. All the small things they brushed off at the time become deafening once they're gone. Here's the paradox. Avoidants don't realize what they had while they have it. They realize what they lost when it's no longer theirs. And that realization cuts deeper than they ever admit, because it proves something they've denied for years, that they do need connection, that they do need love, that independence alone isn't enough. Think of it like oxygen. When you're breathing easily, you don't notice it, but take it away, and every cell in your body screams. That's what happens when you leave the avoidance life. They didn't notice the oxygen of your love, but when it's gone, their entire system aches for it. The void changes them. At first, they try to fill it with distractions, more work, more hobbies, more surface-level connections, but none of it fills the space you left, because what they lost was not replaceable. You weren't just a partner. You were the proof that they could be loved, even when they pushed love away. And that kind of presence is rare. So the void remains, looming, heavy. This is when the avoidant often begins their cycle. They convince themselves, I just need space. I'll be fine soon. I don't need anyone. But the void keeps whispering back. You miss them. You needed them. You lost more than you admitted. And this whisper turns into a haunting, because every quiet night, every lonely morning, the truth grows louder. They miss you. It's important to understand this. Avoidants don't miss you in the same way an anxious partner might. It's not constant longing, day after day. It's waves, strong, unexpected, uncontrollable. One moment they're fine. The next, they're overwhelmed by memories of you. That's the nature of the void. It doesn't go away. It simply waits. And when it surges, it catches them off guard. Psychologists describe this as attachment activation, when loss or distance triggers the dormant attachment system, and suddenly all the feelings they buried erupt at once. For the avoidant, this is terrifying. because they thought they had escaped needing you. But now, their own nervous system betrays them. Their body remembers the comfort of you. Their heart remembers the safety of you. Their mind remembers the possibility of you. And no wall is strong enough to keep that out forever. This is why avoidants often come back when it's too late. Not because they've suddenly changed, but because the void won't let them rest. Your absence becomes a presence in their life. The silence speaks louder than your words ever did. And every time they try to run from it, the void follows. It's not something they can fight. It's something they eventually face. The saddest part? They often face it too late. By the time they realize how much you meant, you've healed, you've grown, you've moved on. And the very thing they once feared, your independence, becomes the reality that leaves them broken. They feared losing themselves in you. But in the end, they lost you. And that's the cost they never expected to pay. So when you wonder why avoidants miss you most after you're gone, remember this. It's not just about missing you. It's about facing the void they can no longer outrun. It's about realizing that distance doesn't protect them. It isolates them. And once you're gone, that isolation is no longer a choice. It's their reality, the regret they never saw coming. Regret is not immediate for the avoidant. At first, they feel relief. Relief that the pressure is gone. Relief that the demands are silenced. Relief that they don't have to navigate the vulnerability they feared. But relief is temporary, because underneath it, regret begins to stir. Avoidants don't know regret the way most people do. It doesn't arrive with tears right away. It doesn't shout at them the moment you walk away. It creeps in slowly, quietly, when they least expect it. And that's what makes it so powerful. It starts with a memory, a place you used to go together, a song you once shared, the way you laughed at something silly that only the two of you understood. Suddenly, the avoidant realizes how much of their world was tied to you, not in chains, but in threads, invisible threads, woven through daily life. And when those threads are cut, life feels emptier than they expected. Regret deepens when they realize the truth. They weren't running from you. They were running from themselves, from the fear of being vulnerable, from the terror of needing someone, from the shame of feeling weak. But in protecting themselves, they destroyed what mattered most. And that realization is a heavy weight to carry. Avoidants live in contradiction. They long for closeness, but they push it away. They crave security, but they sabotage it. And when you leave, the contradiction becomes undeniable, because the very thing they thought they didn't want, your presence, your consistency, your love, is the very thing they miss most. Regret is also amplified by something deeper, comparison. When they try to replace you with surface-level distractions, they notice something. Nothing feels the same. No one feels the same. No experience matches. The comfort you gave, even silence with you, was softer than silence alone. Even conflict with you felt safer than emptiness without you. And this comparison creates an ache they can't soothe. For many avoidants, this regret comes with shame. Shame that they pushed away the person who loved them most. Shame that they acted cold when they were deeply touched. Shame that they confused care for pressure and love for a burden. This shame often keeps them silent, because to admit their regret is to admit they were wrong. And avoidants fear being wrong almost as much as they fear being vulnerable. So the regret grows quietly, hidden, unspoken, but still, it shapes them. They replay conversations in their mind. They rethink choices they made. They imagine alternate endings where they chose differently. And every replay makes the loss feel heavier. Here's the cruel irony. The avoidance regret does not push them to reach for you right away. It pushes them deeper, into silence. They hope the feeling passes. They tell themselves, it's weakness. But the truth is, it's not weakness. It's humanity. It's love. And they're only just beginning to admit they had it. When avoidants feel regret, their body remembers you, even when their mind tries to forget. A familiar smell brings you back. A phrase someone says triggers your voice. A simple routine reminds them of your presence. Their nervous system carries an imprint of you, and no amount of distance erases it. Regret also brings clarity, because once you're gone, they finally see what they refused to before, that you weren't asking too much, that your needs were not a trap, that your love was not suffocating, it was nourishing. And that realization is devastating, because they cannot undo the moment they chose distance over connection. The deepest regret avoidants feel is not just losing you, it's realizing that they lost themselves too. They lost the version of themselves who could have grown with you, who could have healed with you, who could have learned that intimacy is not a cage, but a freedom. And now, that path is closed, and they are left with the silence of what could have been. You see, regret is not about guilt alone. It's about awakening. Awakening to the truth they worked so hard to bury. Awakening to the reality that love is not optional. It's essential. And by the time they awaken, they're too late. You've learned to breathe without them. You've found your strength. You've built a life they can no longer access. And that's when regret turns into heartbreak. The sad part is, you may never see their regret. Avoidants don't often confess it. They hold it inside, locked away, masked by distance and pride. But it shows up in their silence, in their hesitation, in their inability to truly move on. And that silence screams louder than any apology ever could. So when you wonder whether the avoidant regrets losing you, know this: they do, but they regret it in private. They regret it in silence. They regret it too late. And in that silence, their heart carries the weight of what they never said and what they can never get back, the love they can't outrun. Avoidants spend their lives running from intimacy, running from pressure, running from the feeling that someone might truly see them. But here's the truth they can't escape. Love leaves an imprint. Once it touches them deeply, it does not vanish. Even when they push it away, when you're gone, they don't just miss you. They miss the version of themselves they could only be with you. The softer side, the vulnerable side, the one that dared, even for a moment, to trust. And that side of themselves does not disappear. It lingers. It calls to them in the quiet. It whispers in their dreams. Avoidants often convince themselves that love is optional, that life can be built on independence alone. But after you're gone, they discover something painful. Independence is not the same as connection. Freedom is not the same as fulfillment. And solitude, when chosen out of fear, is not peace. It's emptiness. They miss you most in the smallest moments, not just in the big memories, not just in the milestones, but in the ordinary. When they make coffee and no one's there to share it, when they have good news but no one to tell, when they sit in silence and realize it's too silent, that's when missing you becomes unbearable. Avoidants don't admit this easily. On the surface, they may look fine, working, laughing, distracting themselves, but underneath, they're haunted by the echo of your presence, haunted by the warmth you brought, haunted by the fact that they let go of something so rare, so real. And here's what stings the most. They don't just miss your love, they miss your patience, your forgiveness, the way you stayed. Even when they pushed you away, they realize, too late, that you were not trying to trap them, you were trying to love them. And that love, that unconditional presence, is the hardest thing to lose. There's another layer to why they miss you. Avoidants often live with an unspoken wound, the wound of never feeling fully safe in love. You may not have healed that wound completely, but you touched it. You showed them a glimpse of what safety could be. And once someone feels that glimpse, they can't erase it. No distraction fills it. No replacement numbs it. They miss you because you awakened a part of them they had buried. But missing you does not always lead to action. That's the paradox. They may never tell you. They may never reach out. They may never admit how deeply you mattered. Because to admit it means facing their greatest fear, the fear of vulnerability, the fear of needing someone, the fear of saying, I loved you and I lost you. So instead, they carry it quietly. They miss you in silence. They ache in silence. They regret in silence. What does this mean for you? It means their silence doesn't equal indifference. It means their distance doesn't equal forgetfulness. It means you mattered more than they could ever show. And their missing you is proof of that. But here's where the story shifts. While they're stuck missing you, you're given a choice: to stay frozen in their absence, or to rise in your own presence, to wait for them to acknowledge their love, or to build a life so full that their silence no longer matters. The hidden gift of an avoidance, regret, and longing is clarity for you. Clarity that you did not imagine the love. Clarity that your care was not wasted. Clarity that you touched them in ways they will never forget. But also clarity that you deserve more than silence, more than half love, more than fear disguised as distance. You deserve someone who meets your love with openness, not withdrawal. The avoidant may miss you forever, but you are free to love again, to choose connection that chooses you back, to find intimacy that doesn't run when it feels real. And that's the greatest victory. Not that they miss you, but that you finally know your love was never the problem. Their fear was. So yes, avoidants miss you the most after you're gone, but their missing you is not your responsibility. It's their lesson, their silence, their weight to carry. And your lesson? To love without losing yourself, to give without chasing, to walk away without guilt. Because love, real love, doesn't run from closeness. It runs toward it. And if they couldn't run toward you, then the truth is simple. You weren't too much. You weren't the problem. They just weren't ready to face the love they always wanted and feared the most. And now, as they sit in silence, missing what they can't admit, you are free. Free to write a story where love isn't pressure, where presence isn't a threat, where connection isn't chased. It's cherished. That is the love you deserve, and that is the love you will find.